Chapter 2 The Burnt Bones by Charles Vane Hutchison. Published exclusively on Patreon. All rights reserved. Onwards! I shout. Riding on Ironhorn, I lead the convoy with the bulls behind me, my wife in the wagon, and the 2 guards on their bulls in the rear. We ride through the night without stopping so we can get there on time. The sun comes up, and we are almost through the forest when I see a glimpse of smoke far off. Pick up the speed a bit. The bulls, tired, keep up with Ironhorn. Moaning and snorting, they start moving faster. As I clear the bend, I have a clear line of sight to the castle gates around the base of the mountain. The castle was the mountain. There she is. I couldn't see well, but it looked like the front doors were open. Then I saw it. The smoke, black and thick, rising up from the mountain. I look back at my wife, and her face is worried. I press forward, worried as well. We arrive at the gates. It looks grave, with scorch marks everywhere. I get off my bull and start heading up the cobblestone road toward the keep. I see corpses with no flesh, their bones blackened. I approach the doors, blown out with scorch marks everywhere. I approach a pile of armor. I start pulling the suits of armor apart, noticing that black skeletons are falling out of them. I pull maybe 6 of them before I see it. They were protecting the king with their own bodies. What could do something like this? I back up, looking down at the king's skeleton, still with his melted crown on his head. My wife has followed me up. She puts her hand on my shoulder and says, "You know what you need to do. I'm sorry about your cousin. We all loved him. Our king," she says, with a tear in her eye. I pick the crown up, tears in my eyes and no emotion on my face. I look down and the crown is melted in a beautiful way, almost rhythmic and symmetrical, as if it were on purpose. The guards enter the room and thrust their knees into the floor with their heads down. My wife then kneels. I thrust the crown into the air with one hand and shout, "With this crown, I vow to seek justice for this injustice done here." I put the crown on and start to pray to God for help and to provide his hedge of protection. Amen. Stand, my love. Stand, my men. I order one of my guards to leave, go back to the farm, and gather everyone and the supplies. Bring everything. Red fish, I say. I turn to the other black bull and ask if he knows where the Iron Mountains are. The look on his face is scared, and I say, "This is a new era for the kingdom, and we will militarize the kingdom and seek justice." He says, "By doing this?" But then quickly adds, "Yes, sir." Gear up and give them this letter. Within that second, I grab a half-burnt parchment off the floor and a charred finger bone. I write a note to the Iron Templars, asking for aid and for them to provide a man of God for the kingdom. I give them a brief explanation of what had happened. "Leave now," I say. My wife and I gather all the skeletons and clean up a bit, boarding all the windows and making makeshift doors for the night. I return to the bulls, releasing them and letting them roam the city streets. The smell of burning corpses and ash still fills the air. I start to remember the past, when I was a boy, playing with my cousin. Then one day, he left to start being groomed to be king. Night settles in. My wife and I take a room in the keep for the night, have a bite to eat, and she redresses my wounds, pondering what we had seen that day. As my wife and I lay together in the quiet warmth of our chambers, we began to speak softly, our voices filled with the kind of reflection only time and distance can bring. We talked of our children, their lives, their paths, and the ever-growing ache of missing them. We spoke of Bane, our firstborn. His absence weighed heavily on us both. We had missed his 29th birthday this year. It felt wrong. An empty seat at the table, a silence that pressed against the walls of the castle like a storm yet to break. Elise, now 27, had married into the Norse kingdom far to the north, a realm steeped in ice and warrior tradition. She had found love with their king, and though proud, we saw little of her or of the children they had together. Her letters arrived with tales of snow-covered mountains and strong-willed airs, but the parchment could never replace her presence. It was nearly time to begin looking for a wife for Vane, who was 22 now, a good man with a steady heart. But like many of his age, he hadn't shown much interest in courtship yet. We didn't push. The right time would come. Gain, only 19, had no desire for marriage. He was still chasing the thrill of the sword, his heart set on mastering the blade before settling into any other life. We respected that. It reminded me of myself at his age. Sarah, our 17-year-old daughter, blossomed in her role as a princess, but it was the healer's path she loved most. Like her mother, she had taken to botany and the study of natural remedies, wandering the gardens with her journals and satchels of herbs, always seeking to help the people in quiet, meaningful ways. And then there was Drayella, our youngest. Wild-spirited and bold, she spoke often of becoming a swordsman and living a life of adventure. Her eyes gleamed with the same fire I once carried when I was young and dreaming of glory. Lying there beside my wife, thinking of each of our children and the paths they walked, my heart circled back once more to Bane. His decision to leave and fight in the arena had been his alone, but the distance it created was a wound I'd rarely let show. God, I missed him. We awake to a beautiful morning, still with the smell of fire and cooked human flesh in the air. We try to see the good in what we've been going through. Unable to mourn my cousin and king, or my other kin, I struggle with my thoughts. I look out the window behind the throne and see what used to be a thriving kingdom. I pick up the throne and throw it through the window. My wife says, "Did that help?" I say, "No, unfortunately it didn't." I figure out a way I can mourn and be reminded of my quest for justice. I gather all the cooked and charred skulls and femur bones, grab some leather, and cut it into strips. Where the throne used to sit, I arrange the skulls in a square with their upper teeth pointing to the ground. I slip each femur with knuckle between each skull. I add skulls in the middle to support the femurs. I tighten them up with leather strips to keep it supported. I do this over and over, like building a cabin on a lake. I finally finish the base. I take a quick trip to the blacksmith in the village, but not before grabbing the spines and ribs. I get the forge good and hot. Now, I need gold. I go around looking for any gold that's left. I go to the royal vault and find it's closed. I wonder. I put in the old combination we knew as kids. Click, click, click. I pull it open. No way all the gold is left untouched, still sitting in the vault. This was weird. You'd think they would have been here for this. I grab 8 buckets and fill them with gold bars, then return to the blacksmith. I make the trip a couple more times. Then I start to liquefy the ingots of gold. Pure, soft gold. Wasn't that far from the keep. I grab blackened spine bones and arrange them anatomically in a sword mold. Psh! The bones don't burn as I pour the molten gold onto the mold. I repeat this process over and over again until the bones are all gone. I grab 2 buckets of molten gold and forge buckets and bring them to the base I made earlier. Psh! I pour the molten gold into the base of the new throne I'm making. It takes me 9 forge buckets to fill it up. As the last bucket goes in, I placed the charred rib bones in to make the seat, pushing them into the molten gold like boots in the mud. Using the smaller long bones, I make the armrests, then place the spines as the back piece into the still molten gold before it cools. The next day, I admired the throne of justice I had made the day before. Awaiting, I started to envision what we could make out of this once profitable, beautiful kingdom. Being scarred like this only builds character and will fortify our cause with every reminder of what had happened here. We intended on leaving the black scorch marks since we couldn't get rid of them. Sir, I've returned with supplies and everyone and their personal belongings. Well done. After everyone is settled in, we need to clean the city and start reinforcing the city walls and gates. Yes, my king.